guys. Who wants to teach?
I think we need to use no, same. We just posted a link to Zoom. Okay, Almas, you can start.
So today we're going to learn about TestNG, I guess.
Can you share your screen?
And how many companies have you applied, Almas?
Companies, I'm just applying for 2-3 companies per day.
Is it another link for Zoom?
No, looks the same.
See? Try to re-log in. Okay, I guess we should call to us out.
I think he's having technical issues.
I found a job opportunity. I'll post it in random. Here it is, guys. Can you check random? It's for testers, the job opportunity.
It's gonna be funny.
I bet.
It will be space Java. Yeah?
Yeah, I used to work with marijuana company as a QA.
Did you like it?
No, nothing interesting. They teach me a lot of things about this, but everything I forgot. So the coupon rebate application for marijuana. When you buy marijuana, they give you money back, something like that.
Oh, this market is hot right now.
Yeah.
Flashback.
Nick is supposed to teach us, right?
Yes, yeah, Nick today. Interesting. On my job, the previous QA was Nick. Maybe the same.
Ah, yes, tell me some interesting facts.
About testing or myself.
Anything.
Well, I guess we should go to watch meetup.
Oh, there is a meeting today, right? Did you go?
Yeah, I'm in a parking lot in front of that building, so I'll finish this class and I will go to meetup.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yay. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, good. Share screen maybe. How's that? Oh, I can see the screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see the slides.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we're 3 minutes late now. Have to go faster. So today we're talking about this TestNG XML file configurations. It probably sounds a lot scarier than it really is. TestNG is just testing new generation. So it's like a superset of JUnit. XML is extensible markup language. It's like HTML, but the broader type of HTML. And file configuration means it's additional data for your tests. Any questions? Why do we need it? Can anyone guess why we need it?
To run tests.
We need it to run tests. We can run tests without it, but it gives us more flexibility. So if you think about your tests as, well, think about like manual testing. You design your tests in one page, right? And then in another page, you configure the test to execute. So this is a way to describe how you want your test to execute. Whereas the actual test would be the design. So let's take a look at the project now. We have the project over here. This is the project. Now there's some options to get a copy of the project. I'm going to show you how to do it this old-fashioned way. So we take this, copy it to the clipboard. You've probably seen this before, but I guess it'll be a refresher. And now I'm going to try and get, hey, what's, my thing's off the screen. That is weird. Sometimes the IntelliJ goes off the screen. See what I can do about it. Might have to restart it. Hope it comes up in a reasonable place. Sometimes when you use extra screens, this happens. So where is it? Where did it go? There we go. Tip of the day. Ah, thank goodness. Got a project. So then we can go to File, New Project, Version Control, Git. And here we can just paste in the directory, the link to the repository. As you can see, this is as its famous GitHub repository here. We can hit this test to see if it's a real repository, and you get the green connection successful. This is where it will put it. There might be something there already. So I don't know, again. Then we clone it. There's another project here already. Don't worry about that. New window. It's so slow. Okay, again.
Can we
Here
get
it
link?
is. Can you see the screen? Okay.
Yeah, we can see, but can we get a link?
For this?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You may already have this project here. Let's see, I'll put the link on here. So you copy the link and then just create a new project like version control Git, and then you just paste in the link. It's pretty easy. And then when you have the project, you'll notice it has the Gradle resources and the source control. It has a test directory only, and then it has Java and resources. This one actually doesn't. So at the bottom of the screen, we have this import Gradle project. This will make everything look the correct way when we run this. Notice it has the Gradle window over here. You can use this to build your project and run tasks if you want to. So the Gradle, you'll see it over here in the end. There's like a tab there. You may have to install a plugin to get that feature. So here is the project. Now you can see it's color coded, so everything is good. We've got the Java source code. These are your tests that you may be working on already. And then notice we have this TestNG XML file here. This is what we're going to be talking about in this class today. And then there's a build window here. You can see that it's building successfully. You want to check that because when it builds, then you have all the tools and external libraries loaded into your project. So first off, let's look at what do we have here in this Java folder. By now, you probably understand a lot of this Java. Notice there's a base test here, a class. This is inherited by your tests, and it has these before and after methods here. This is part of TestNG that you can create these before and after. It means that when you run your tests, it'll first run the before method, which is right before the method of your test runs. And you can see that it's using the Chrome driver here. And then the after tears it down and quits, right? So this is something that you've seen before, hopefully, but so you have these login tests here. Notice this. When you have the annotation test, it's a runnable test in TestNG. Let's just check something here. Notice here you have this priority setting. That's used also by TestNG. If you set it up to use priorities, it will look at this setting here. This is metadata that you can add into your test here. There's other settings you can add too, which you'll learn about later. Now, notice these methods here, they have to do with Selenium. You can see the Selenium commands in here. that have been put in here. And these are marked with this. This is called a access modifier, and it's set as public. And that means that you can access these methods anywhere in your program. So whoever created these perhaps is expecting to use them in other packages. The IntelliJ is telling you you could mark them as private now, and the program would still run, and you could make them the access wider as soon as you need to. So usually you would make them private to start with, and then when you needed it to be public, you would update it and so on. So what we can try is, let's try and run one of these tests and see what happens. So we run login tests. Let's see what happens. Looks like it's running the task. Oh, it looks like something happened here. Something went wrong. So when you use TestNG, you'll get used to looking at messages such as this. This is something that a student has talked about before. It's no tests were found for the given includes, right? So it's telling us we can't run the test for some strange reason. Something that's set up in our project here is making the tests not visible. So what could that be? It's looking for login tests, login, empty email password test. It's not finding it. So we've tried to run the test directly from here and it wouldn't let us. So maybe it has to do with the tasks, task manager. You can see the tasks are running here. So let's take a look at that. We have build.gradle task manager. Oh, it's asking to use the wrapper. So what happens here is IntelliJ is telling you if you add this wrapper to your project, then when anyone uses the project, they can build it using the wrapper instead of installing Gradle on their machine to do it. So it's a great way of making the test more portable. Someone that hasn't used this project before and hasn't installed Gradle could still run the tests. And it's often used in continuous testing with this method. So we want to do that. We'll click the apply suggestion, and it's going to import the project and rebuild it. So let's look and see if it's building it successfully. Looks like it is, so that's good. So now, what else do we see here? So in the testing task here, which is being referenced by our tests somehow, it's saying to use these suites here. So for the moment, let's see if it'll run without it. What do you think will happen? Oh, it says enable auto import. We'll also do that. We'll enable auto import so that it'll build your project automatically whenever you change something here. So what do you think? Will this execute if we run the test now? Let's try it and see. So now it's saying the test was ignored, right? So look at this problem here. It's saying there's no driver, no web driver here. This is because I didn't add the WebDriver Chrome driver to the project. So there's two ways to fix this. You'll notice they say something about system property has to be set. We can actually do that. We could point this system property to wherever our WebDriver Chrome driver is at. But instead I'll do it the way that we've been doing it before. and I'll just find it and add it to the project. So if you're seeing that message there, then let's see if I can get my Explorer to start. Something's going wrong here. Okay, here it comes. Seems like the zoom is making it a little bit slower than I'm used to. And so when I'm clicking it, I'm expecting something to happen. So we need to go to C, WebDriver. And because I have an older version of Chrome, I need this one. So we'll just copy paste it onto here. That's not the right project though, is it? Onto here. So then we just paste it onto here. And you can see we have Chrome driver.exe, right? Because we have a Windows machine here. Okay, so far so good. We got Chrome driver. So what do you think? If we run the test now, will it execute and do what we want it to do? Let's try it. So now it's executing. Looks like it's loading a login page. And the test is passing. So far so good. Now we have this test that passes, right? So you can see that if you have TestNG, you have IntelliJ, and you have this plugin, you can run your tests directly. See that? You always want to make sure you can do that, because when you build your tests, you'll want that capability. Are there any questions so far on what we covered? What we did was we took this project, downloaded it. We commented out the suite for now, but this is the big thing we're going to be talking about in a minute. And we discovered we could run the tests. We added the Chrome driver. So we solved all of the problems with this for now. So now we have tests that we can run. We can also run them from Gradle. Notice the same thing applies. We can click this little green thing here and run the test from here. Let's see if it works. Does it work? Can you run all the tests from there? Looks like you can. So normally, when your tests run automatically in the cloud, they'll probably run using the Gradle, which is the build management tool or process management tool also. Anyway, we don't have to watch all these tests. We'll let it run, but some of them are passing, some of them are failing. It's telling us the status here. When the test's complete, we can look at the report. You'll see there's a icon here, Open Gradle Test Report, and we'll be able to look at that, but we probably have to finish the tests. You can see trip listing tests. So you can see that this class was used to run verify count of day, which actually failed. So normally you'd investigate this right away if you saw this, because you'd be like, do we need to update the test, or, you know, is there an actual real problem going on here? Did they change the interface? So you'd be looking at this and trying to solve this problem, which we'll be doing soon, probably in this course. So it looks like it finished. It didn't run all the tests, though, did it? It only ran this one. But it was able to find those tests somehow. I don't know how. I guess because they're in the default package here. And then we can look at the results then, right? See this report, you can see we ran 3 tests, we had 1 failure. We didn't ignore any tests, and it took 24 seconds to do it, which is pretty fast, right? 66%. And then it tells you which tests have failed here, and it gives you useful information for figuring out actually why it failed. That's a very nice report, right? It looks pretty good. It doesn't tell you which tests passed though, which is kind of weird. Anyway, let's look at what we did so far. We commented this out, which was probably not the greatest idea. So now we're going to look and see what this file actually does. And then we're going to reintroduce it into the tests. We can actually run the tests directly from TestNG XML file, but let's take a look and see what's in the file, right? So this is your TestNG file. If you've ever done HTML programming, it might look familiar to you. It's the same type of angle brackets, nested. It's not the easiest thing to read, but when TestNG was created, this XML was, it was the latest and most exciting thing. And now I think it's less, it's used less than it used to be used. But in the Java world, it's still used fairly extensively. They configure everything with these files, so it won't be strange to someone that does Java and XML. But the top line here tells you what the XML version is, the encoding, and the UTF-8. This tells you what the character set is. And that's just a standard thing. And then the next one is the doc type. If you don't have these in your file, then Gradle won't be able to find it because they won't know that it's actually a TestNG. Then inside the suite, the top level is a suite, and this is the highest level you can go in TestNG, is to have a suite of tests. So you can't have two suites in a file. Well, let's see if you can. Let's prove that you can't have two suites. Can we have two suites in a file? It seems to be complaining about something here. What does it say? Multiple root tags. So you can only have one suite. So the top level for TestNG XML configuration is a suite, and you'll always have one suite, and hopefully you'll give it a name that reflects what the test actually does, right? So in this case, you might say one suite per XML file. And then you have your tests. You can have multiple tests. Let's show you for sure that you can have multiple tests. There you go. It doesn't complain. You can have more than one test. Then we have classes. The classes generally tell you where to find the tests. And you'll notice that you can't run XML without the classes. Let me just show you what will happen. If you do a shift control \, it'll comment out the code like that. So you might use that feature to get these special XML comments when you need them. Here we're commenting out the classes. If you right click and do run, you can run your test from the XML file. It doesn't give you an error, but it doesn't find any tests either because we didn't put any classes in there. It doesn't know where to look for them. So without the classes, no tests. You'll have empty tests. No results. Let's go back and let's take a look at this. So now you'll notice something pretty striking in this file, that we have these red, what do we have these red class names and green ones? So IntelliJ is going to tell you when something seems wrong, right? So in this case, it's saying that there's no class called sign-up tests. Why isn't there a class sign-up tests? Well, there's no classes in here called sign-up tests. These are all the classes we have. Base test, that doesn't have any tests in it anyway. Login tests, trip listing tests. So we don't have these classes. So they will basically do nothing, I guess. Oh, no, it'll actually fail because you can't find them. So let's demonstrate that it actually fails then. And you'll see. So you get a TestNG exception. So you may see these exceptions if there's something wrong with your configuration. Generally, when you use XML TestNG configuration, you might see these when there's a problem. So saying it can't find the class, right? So you, not only do you need to have classes, but if the classes are wrong, your tests won't run. So we cannot run these tests right now. We'll save them for later, right? So we do a shift control \, we'll comment that out. So do you think it would run now if we have this? Who thinks that this will run correctly now? Let's try it and see. So you right click on the XML file, run. Let's see. It says there's no test still. There's no test, but we told it with the classes, and we know the class is correct because it's green. So what could be wrong here? It has methods here, include name, login success. So login test.login success, but it's not in here. There's nothing named login success in here. So this, when you specify and include, it's only going to include the tests that have a matching name. And since none of them have a matching name, there's actually no tests in here. But do we actually have to have these methods here? Well, let's go to the slide and see what it says for a second. You would need to specify the class names. Notice in the slide too, you've got green and red. So you have to specify the class names. If you specify an invalid class name, your test won't run. And if you don't specify any classes, you'll just have 0 tests run. So you actually do need to specify the class names for an XML file.
Maybe we need uncomment TestNG line in Gradle file, no?
We don't have to do it yet, but we can. I'll demonstrate it in a second. For now, I'm just showing you that you can run the XML directly without Gradle. But now that we have this working somewhat, right? We can also run it from Gradle. Oops. We can also run it from Gradle. So we can uncomment this, and we should probably never comment this out in reality, right? Because if we forget that we did it, when we check this in, the test won't run. So you should probably keep it like this. But I was just demonstrating that you can execute the TestNG files. But that's a very good point. Thank you. We can run the test from here. Do the test run from here? Now that we have TestNG, it will listen to the TestNG configuration and do what we told it to do. Here it's saying the events were not received, and it didn't seem to do anything. So let's go back to TestNG. Remember, we said that the tests were filtered out because of this one. So you may see something like that happening sometime. But do we actually need to add an include on here? Do you think it will run without it? What if we had it commented out like this? Let's run it from Gradle and see what it does. Here it goes. What's it going to do? Is it going to do anything interesting? So now we see the tests are actually running because we don't actually have to tell it. Some of the tests are failing. We don't have to tell it what to include. It will include everything. That might not be exactly what you want, but it is possible to do it that way. So if you don't tell it which tests you want to run, it'll run all the ones for the class that you specified, right? So in the default package, we specified login tests. So it actually ran all the tests that it could find in login tests. Even though there's more tests in the framework than just this one class, the TestNG file, because we told it a specific class, it actually filtered it to be just that class. So that's pretty interesting. But what about if we did want to do this? How would we do it? Take a look at this. So we want to include a name that works this time. Maybe just run one test. So what tests do we have? We have login empty email password test, right? So what if we change this one to be login empty email password test. So now we've entered the include name, but don't forget, not when the classes are not found, they'll be red, but that's not true of the include names. You have to be careful to match them. If this was slightly different, the test would not run. So we have to name the test here, the method name of the test that we want to run. And we can have more than one in here. Suppose in wildest dream, you want to have two tests here, or, you know, two methods as part of your one test, I should say. Since we have a suite, a test, and we're saying we want methods in there. Let's see, what is the name of the other test in here that we have? Incorrect email and password test, right? Let's try this one. Where should we rerun it? Gradle? Or command line, perhaps? If you go on the bottom of the screen here, you have terminal, and it conveniently opens the shell in the same directory as your project. And you can type Gradle, and that should build the project. When you just do Gradle, it does the default, which is probably just to build it. Eventually, you can do it. There we go, build successful. But also, notice we have this here, test. We have a test task, right, in Gradle. That tells us, you can see that you can run, and it tells you, it runs the test task here. You can also do it here. You could say Gradle test. And this time, we should be running this task, which identifies this suite, which identifies this test. It says smoke tests, apparently. And it tells you where where the classes are. Remember also, like if you have a package, because this is a default package, you can just put the name of the class. But if it's in a package, you'd have to put the package name in the same format you do with an import. So it would look like that. And then we're going to run these two tests. So let's see if it actually will do it from the command line. So now you can run your tests from the command line. You can, schedule them to run somewhere. So again, it builds the project and then it starts the test. And we see the test running here and the Selenium things that it does. There we go. Build successful. Now you may be wondering, if I run it here, where's the results at? Where do I get the results? So you can define where it gets the results, or it will create this one doesn't have results yet. So we'll do that later. I'll explain that later. Because for now, I don't think it's creating. Oh, wait a sec, here it is. So where do the results go? We got test results here. That's a big clue, right? It's probably here, test. And then we have this. So the results are output in XML, unfortunately. So you can get reports when you do listeners, but for now, you get this. It tells you how many tests have run, and then it gives you a log of everything it did, and so on. So if you look under build, you'll see your test results there. It'll be the same similar thing to what we have here. And then I think you get the gist of that one. So you got your suite, only one per file. Tests, you can have 0 or more tests, although 0 will be kind of odd. The tests, you can identify the classes to find the tests in. And then you can define optionally, as we saw, the methods. You can include or exclude. So you could say exclude, I believe. So in this case, we'd run the test, we'd include this one, and we'd exclude that one. That's how you would set up your tests to run. Let's look at the slides again, make sure we're doing the right thing here. So you saw that you can specify the test names here. Now remember, it's not going to tell you if this is wrong. You just won't find any of the tests. And you can use include or exclude. So if there's a test that you don't want to run, you could exclude it. Let's see. So the next step, let's create a smoke test and a regression test. This is going to be pretty interesting. So we're going to do this step now. Here's an example of a smoke test, right? Small number of tests, only input the ones smoke. So in creating a suite, we're actually creating a new XML file, smoke.xml. And one way to easily do that maybe is to copy the one that you have, paste it onto the same directory, and change the name to smoke. Then you have a smoke and a TestNG file now. So on your smoke file, now we need to make it serious, so we get rid of this. We can say smoke test. Well, this is smoke test suite, I guess. And it's for the dean's website, perhaps. Now we can have multiple smoke tests here. instead of just one, why don't we create two? So test name equals smoke test one, login. What is this? Login error. Login email. Oh, empty. Let's do empty. Empty email. And then smoke test 2 incorrect email and password. And then classes. Looks weird, doesn't it now? I think what I did was I missed this thing at the end here. Perhaps that's what's wrong with it. We don't have classes. That's weird. Oh yeah, we don't have an ending. We don't have an ending tag for this one. Ah, wait a second. It was supposed to be like this. So we have two tests. This one has this test, and this one has this one. So we could do something like this. We could have two tests, two smoke tests, and I guess we need to include. If we exclude, it'll probably run the same test. We can include. If you were to put the same test in here twice, what would happen, do you think? It actually just ignores it. Nothing happens. So, smoke test, we probably don't need this. We created a smoke test. Now remember, we can run the smoke test from here. Run. Or we could find some way to run it with Gradle. Let's have a look and see what we have next here. So we created a smoke test similar to this one, slightly different, right? All tests should be included in the regression test, will be the next one. So we will create a regression test as well, like this. All right, so we got regression and smoke test. Let's say for smoke tests, we run less of these tests, right? Because we just want to see if everything's working. So we only have one test in here now. Smoke test 1, kind of weird. Regression test, we have two tests. I'll take this out. It looks kind of confusing. Oh, by the way, I should show you this. If you do Control F, you can do, oh, I'm sorry, it's not Control F, is it? Is it Control R? Control R. If you do Control R, you can do a search and replace. So where we have smoke, we'll change it to regression. Replace all. Now we have a regression test. We have more tests in the regression test. Remember on the slide saying all the tests are included in the regression test. We didn't include all of them but obviously we could add more and include every test that we want here. And we can run them. We can run them as XML files, but we probably want to run them here. So what do we do here? Do we want to change this to be smoke.xml? We could do that. But there's another way, right? This is how it looks now. And we're going to create a smoke test like this. And why would we do it like this? Who knows why we would do it instead of just changing the name here? Anybody know?
Then we can use in a terminal or writing Gradle test smoke.
Yeah, so if we just change it, we only can ever run one of them. When we want to be able to run smoke and regression and decide at the time that we test which one we run, right? Just by naming the task. So we need a new task down here to run those other things. So we have a new task, smoke type test, I believe. And we need another task, regression type test, like this. And what do you think goes in these brackets here? Does anyone have a guess what we would put in here?
Suits the path of this file.
Yes, exactly. We want something similar to this, right? We want to use a TestNG, and we want to put the path to the file, like you were saying. You're absolutely right. We want to make this smoke, right? And we want to make this one regression, right? And so now we have two tasks. We should still be able to run the test, right? Here. And we should be able to run the new test. You see these green arrows that became available suddenly by magic here? It means we can run the tests here, but we can also run them. How? How else can we run it? We can run it from the terminal, or what I call the command line on Windows. We can run it from the terminal. Gradle, clean, test, smoke, right? So let's try and run some of these from the terminal. So what if we did Gradle, will you please clean yourself and do the smoke test for us? Let's see if it will. Just thinking about it. So it's building the project the same way because we said clean. Now it's executing the tests furiously. See if it seems like it's even faster than before. Then we could say regression. We want to run the regression. So, you know, like whenever you build a new version of your software, you run this regression test, which means you run all the tests that you created before. Here we go. Run regression test for me, Gradle. So now you can see on the command line, we can run any of the tests we want, including the original test, which gives us the power to set up continuous testing and name the tests that we want to run. It's pretty exciting, huh? So now you can see the power of using Gradle and XML for test execution. We didn't really talk about Selenium at all. We just talked about the framework to do the testing part. Do you have any question on any of these things? May seem a little, it looks harder than it really is, right? We talked about suites, tests, and methods, how to name them, include and exclude them in a suite, which means I want to run a suite of tests for a specific need, right? We created one for smoke testing, which means a simple, fast test to see if the, if the system built correctly and is running. We run like a small number of tests. And then we did a full regression test, which is we want to run every test that we can think of, right? So we can run any of these tests, including the TestNG file that may have even something different in there. We can make as many different tasks as we want to and run those. And we saw like some of the, in the beginning, we saw how to create this project from scratch, right? To bring it down and into IntelliJ pretty swiftly, build it. And then we worked out some of those issues, right? Which was the XML was actually blocking the tests from running, right? Because the filtering was making it run 0 tests. And we saw that by just commenting out the tests here, the TestNG here, we could just run the tests that we wanted. We could even just run them right from TestNG inside IntelliJ. We could run them even without Gradle. We could run them by right-clicking on the XML file and saying run, or debug even if you wanted to do that. And of course, we can run them with Gradle, the dependency management workflow building tool. But don't comment this out, because if you forget to take the comment out, none of your tests will run. Or maybe it'll be a regression test because it'll try to run all of them. Any questions on this topic of TestNG XML configuration?
In a Gradle configuration, you specify type test. Can we use something else?
Say again?
In a Gradle configuration, you specify type as test.
Type as test?
Yeah. Can we use something else?
I think you can. It's not clear how you use this. Maybe you don't need it even. You just have to be careful it builds. So here it fails if I take that out. So for some reason you need this in here. Otherwise it doesn't build. And again, this behavior might be specific to, there's 2 different types of file you can have, Groovy or Kotlin. And it might just be that my configuration has Kotlin. So you may be able to run it without this. But in my case, it seems to be required. So I guess the test of type of test, it signals to the task management tool that it's going to run tests. And then this part says use TestNG to run the tests. And then you specify the suite. By the way, what would happen if you added more than one suite here? What if you had SRC, test, resources, regression, no, not regression, smoke.xml. Do you think that would work? Anyone like to guess whether this would work or not?
Probably yes.
It does. You can specify multiple suites for a task, which is you absolutely probably going to need that capability to run and manage and organize your tests. So yeah, you can run multiple suites. It does say suites, so that's kind of a giveaway, right? Doesn't say suite. So yeah, you can run multiple there.
Can I specify priority there?
Priority you can specify within your XML file. Yeah, I think you can actually. And you can even specify a single test by using a variable on Gradle. You could say just run these 2 tests and it would do it. So it's pretty flexible. I mean, there's a lot of, we're just looking at some basic things. So it's best not to worry about too many different ways you could use this, because it's probably mind-boggling and you would lose your mind. So it's best to just look at a few examples here. Just concentrate on the simple case that we have here, because like some other cases are pretty crazy, right? Like I was working on this one today. Take a look at this. New window, right? What kind of thing do we have here with XML? This isn't the right one, is it? Nope. It's not coming. Oh. Huh. Yeah, I don't think I can get it to come up. Yeah, for some reason this one won't display, so you won't be able to see it, I don't think. Oh well, it's not that important. I was just going to show you like a massive file with like tons of XML that I've been working on. There's over 800 tests in it. So it can get pretty complex. But this one we don't need actually. This is a different one. This is the one we were looking at. But to start out, use just, you would practice with these elements that we talked about today and in the slides. Creating multiple suites, right? Like this. Maybe including multiple tests and, describing which methods you want in each test. So, you can have multiple classes and methods in these tests as well. Don't forget. You have test, and then you have the class, and then which methods. And then you could have, in your test, you could have more than one class. So you can continue it. So maybe the tough thing is this syntax, right? To get used to this, probably, get used to typing this type of thing. And making sure that you don't have any errors in it. Like when you create a test here, the name field's required. So it won't run unless you have the name, and suite has to have a name. This preserve order, by the way, is optional. We could take it out. It would still run. You saw that the methods are optional here. And yeah, I think we're out of time for today. So think about, I would try and create some smoke and regression tests and execute them from Gradle. And when you get started, make sure that the project builds, right? So this is important. If there's something preventing the project from building, the tests won't run. So always, you can set this to automatically build if you want to. And then when you change something, it'll build. But if you don't do it that way, periodically build it and make sure there's nothing preventing the test from running. Then, if you can run your tests from here, your tests are good. It's really great if you can do that, because then you know the test run. So if there's a problem running your XML, then the problem's in the XML somewhere, right? Because you know that the test runs without it. So it's really good to do things in that order, because then it simplifies a little bit what you have to deal with. If the test works and runs, when you run it from TestNG and it fails, there's probably something wrong with there. There are a lot of other things you can do with this XML. You can run your tests in groups. It's similar to tagging your tests with different names. Like you could have a group for your smoke tests. You could have and what you do is you use a syntax on your tests to say which group it's in. So you say groups equals smoke or something. This might not be the exact syntax, right? Yeah, that's not exactly right. Maybe it's like this. Oh yeah. So it reminds you when you do this that you have to define a group in your XML, and it'll do it for you. So that is a good feature to have there. But we'll probably talk about that later. But I just wanted to say that with this XML, you can run groups, and you can run your tests in parallel. So you can add XML here to run the tests concurrently, so that it's faster. And you can also add data in here, or data providers, so that you can tell the test where to get the data to run the test and make them data driven, which we'll be doing later on, I'm sure. But I think we'll stop there, unless you have any more questions about this. I would try and create some of these tests the way that I did it here. Maybe follow through and do that. That'll give you like a good practice with TestNG to start out. So
There is 2 questions in Zoom chat.
Zoom chat.
Not Slack, not Slack, Zoom.
Zoom. Zoom. Gotcha. How do I look at the? How do I look at that? Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it. Oh, okay. So there's a question on here. Oh, it doesn't have the type test. That could be, yeah. Why we couldn't run test? It doesn't have the type test. Yeah, I think it looks like we need that to run the test. I'm not sure if it's something to do with my configuration that I need that, but it looks like it's needed. And then why is a clock on the computer? This is a company provided computer, so I don't know that their servers must be off by 8 minutes or something. that might be an issue, but so we have to watch out for that.
Yeah, because in the beginning we waiting you 10 minutes and we're thinking that you have some issues with connecting to us.
Oh yeah, I had some issues starting the meeting. I'm gonna have to remember how I did it for next time. I think you have to click the link, but I also had to close out of Zoom and then restart it. Yeah, so the Zoom was a harder problem than the XML. I don't know why that is. Yeah. Okay, good. Ready to learn how to do this? It's a very popular tool to use for test automation. And you don't have to use it for just Selenium. You can use it for API testing also. And we even use it for things like generating test data and stuff like that. Because it's so flexible and you can run things in parallel. So, you know, it's very useful. So does it look difficult or does it seem okay?
It seems okay.
Seems okay. Yeah, hopefully I described all the problems that you might run into there. Because it's tricky to get this, the Gradle set up to work correctly. And when you introduce the XML into Gradle, then you might run into problems there too, because now your tests are going through the TestNG configuration. If there's something not right in it, it could either throw an exception. You saw that you can get an exception if you name a class that doesn't exist. And if you have a method that doesn't exist, it just ignores all the tests, as you saw. So yeah, some of the problems that you may have seen not being able to run the tests could be related to adding this TestNG file in here. The workaround to get it going was just to comment it out, and then we went into the TestNG and then we commented out some errors and we fixed some of these includes so that it would actually include the right tests. And then it was working correctly. So hopefully you saw how to troubleshoot if you run into a problem. If not, you can always send a question. I'll look into it and see if I can fix it. And maybe we should end on that. Don't want to keep you too long. But if you have any questions, go, put them on Slack. And I think we'll be seeing you on Thursday for the next part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.